You're listening to The Rich Life Revolution with me, Michelle Cooper. My mission is to empower you to step into your next level of wealthy. You'll hear all the deets, a little bit of inspiration, and real life takeaways so that you can create your own rich life revolution. Let's dig in. Hey girl, hey, welcome to the Rich Life Revolution. I am your host, Michelle, and today we're talking about rapid transformational therapy with my amazing guest, Chrissie Catling. Now, I will warn you that sexual abuse and other trauma are discussed in this episode, and if these topics are triggering for you, please champion your wellness and consider skipping this episode. So many of us experience less of our lives than we might due to past traumas, limiting beliefs, and societal roadblocks. Authenticity and living the richest existence possible can seem out of reach as we continue to push through the day-to-day, always searching for and inevitably finding things we want more and ways we fall short. In this episode, I explore this modern phenomenon with Chrissie Catling, a practitioner of Rapid Transformational Therapy, which is called RTT, her personal experience with this treatment, as well as additional certifications in clinical hypnotherapy, somatic therapy, human design, and many other powerful modalities, give Chrissie such an amazing breadth of knowledge and experience to draw from. As she explains, she helps two primary types of clients upgrade their computer chips to their beings. Those who deeply and damagingly believe they are not enough, and those whose outwardly successful existences conceal internal and external ceilings, blocking them from taking their rich lives even further. Now, Chrissie's practice gets its depth and nuance in part from being grounded in different schools of thought, from somatic and intuitive models to hypnotherapy to meditation and indigenous medicine. At its root, so much of what we experience is energetic, and Chrissie owes a lot of her understanding of vibrational and emotional energies to the work of researcher Dr. David Hawkins. So, let's dive in. This is an incredible healing episode and so informative. And so I can't wait for you to hear and for Chrissie to share her genius with you. Welcome, Chrissie. It's so good to spend this time with you today. Thank you for getting up really early because you're all the way on the other side of the world.
Yeah, well, hello, Michelle. I'm very grateful to be here.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about you? I just am so intrigued by your work and I want to share your genius, your excellence with the world. I just really want people to understand what you do and how you do it.
Thank you. My work is, I have a combined work of rapid transformational therapy, which is a fairly new forward therapy that's really making enormous change in people's lives in a fairly fast, long-lasting, effective time. So rapid transformational therapy is a combination of hypnosis, psychotherapy, so there's some talk, but hypnosis really to pop you into so we have a conversation with the subconscious mind. And in accessing the subconscious mind, we can access and work with the parts of people that are limiting them. Now, that can be two styles of people. One who come with really deep limiting beliefs and patterns of behavior, which often ground down to, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I don't fit in, or it's not available to me. And everything sort of moves from those very basic concepts that their subconscious mind has created those beliefs and behaviors for us as we've grown through life and experienced things. The other clients I work with are those who are living a very prolific life, those who are doing very well, but they've hit glass ceilings or they want to advance in a way they're not able to access themselves. So I work with that client as well. So that's more the CEO, the one who wants to take their audience to a much greater level and unsure how to get past themselves in stepping onto that bigger stage. I mean, that person is very varied as much as the one who's limited in many, many ways. So I came to my work through my own need to heal. And I had tried decades, Michelle, of seeking a way to really transform what inwardly was going on for myself. And I've really worked with from traditional therapies, energetic therapies, right through to even Comanche medicine. So I experienced a huge array of work and still I got to a point where I hit rock bottom. I've through a number of things that have happened, some of them, major surgery, some of it business and moves and loss of family, but this crucial point in time. And I thought, wow, I've really got myself here, which was burnt out very badly. How am I going to build my life out of this? This is an opportunity rather than, it was a crippling place, but it was an incredible place of opportunity. So I did a lot of work with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, fabulous mindset leader, and then also came across Marissa Peer's work, who teaches her modality of rapid transformational therapy, which is an incredible combination of hypnosis as the inroad, psychotherapy, some neuro-linguistic programming, and cognitive behavioral therapy. So on a really deep level, we're accessing, if you liken to the computer chip of your being and upgrading it. And the results for me, in my experiences, were so profound after all the years of suffering and looking for that next level of not just abundance, but, to me, what is abundance? Yes, it's wealth abundance, but it's also health, it's connection, it's joy, it's love, it's all those, abundance isn't just a bag of things. It's an energy. So in coming across Marissa Peer's work, that profound change led me to change my career from the creative industries to studying this and now working as an advanced rapid transformational therapy intersected with somatic healing and some other liberatory practices that I've learned along the way.
That's amazing. I love when people are called into something because of their own need for healing, for growth. And the work that I do with people around finances and the energy of money and things like that, it was my own need to figure this part of my life out and to heal subconscious wounds that I had been carrying around, probably generational. And so I love that because there's an authenticity in that work, right? Like, it's not like, oh, well, you went to school to do this thing and now you're doing it, which was my life before, right? Like, I went to school to, have a career in finance and had a skill set and did a thing, but it wasn't a calling. There wasn't more of a deeper root to the work that I was doing, right? It was very surface level. So I love that.
How did that change happen for you?
Well, again, similar to you, I kind of hit rock bottom, to be honest. Like, I found myself overworking. I found myself very unhealthy, overweight, struggling with a lot of health issues. My husband and I separated. He left the country. I was a single mom to 3 kids. Like, I was at the bottom. Very, very much one of those on your knees, I don't know what to do. Like, universe, please tell me. Like complete surrender. And it was very much for me, like a moment by moment. It was like, I have to understand how I got myself here. And only by healing that, I think that I'm going to get myself out. And so there was a lot of things that I tried, therapy, coaching, psychotherapy, plant medicine, breath work, Joe Dispenza's work, Tony Robbins, like all the people. And I read a lot. One of the key things that I kind of like a shift for me, I read a book called Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping, which was a game changer for me and kind of led me down a path of healing myself. Like, not about forgiving other people, it was about forgiving myself. So that was really such a pivotal moment for me.
I feel too there was a need for me to forgive myself, because understanding things happen to us. But at the end of the day, we get ourselves to those places, as hard as that's to hear. When others have done things and you think those experiences aren't up to you, but at the end of the day, you are where you are for the choices or decisions or what you've put up with, or whatever, as you said, generationally, you bring with you that blocks you and stops you from having your own voice, being your authentic self. And it takes work, hey.
Totally. And that, like we're talking like, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years I'm on this journey, right? And like you basically summarize that book in a couple of sentences, because before that it was like these things were happening to me and they were perpetrated by other people. And radical forgiveness is like accepting our own ownership in whatever happened, right? Our role and how we got there, accepting responsibility and taking radical responsibility for where we're at in our lives without shame and blame.
Shame is such a low vibrational, it's the lowest vibrational emotion we can experience. I don't know if you know David Hawkins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Written, and one of the most forward thinkers. He's no longer here. He passed away some time ago. But his work has been instrumental in understanding vibrational energy, emotional energy. So shame is the bottom. It's 20. That's its resonance. Love is 500. So when you go shame, and I'm not sure of this level, but sort of shame, apathy, anger, all those lower vibrations, until you start to move into forgiveness and acceptance, can you then start to really shift your vibrational energy? And I find the beauty of what I do is when you're clearing away people's very held emotions, the shame, not only that they might have felt, but the shame they've carried from a perpetrator. For those who are sexually abused or abused, they pick up and carry that, especially if they're children. So you're living in these very contracted emotions. And when we start to release those, it is like this. The lower ones are right at the base. And as we start to release and let go of what isn't who we really are, we start to move into those more expansive emotions, till we start to really resonate in, well, love and above would be just incredible all the time. Humanity at the moment exists on about 270. So we've got some work to do collectively before we can really start to rise. So everyone's individual work for me is imperative, not only for themselves, but it does ripple out and make a difference in our world as well.
Totally. And I completely agree. And I didn't realize, like, I read the book The Body Keeps Score by Gabor Mate, And in that, I realized, oh, I was a victim of sexual assault when I was 15. And I was like, oh, okay, so my body is holding on to this energetically. And there's a shame there because I was made to feel that it was my fault, that I should have known better, all of the things that happens. And I didn't understand how this had affected me in my life. And so having an understanding of how we can carry shame and not even realize that we're carrying it, right? Because it happened a long time ago. We think, oh, well, we got over it, right? We moved on from there, but we're still carrying it around. Like, I remember thinking, like, I was carrying it around like a lead backpack, like it kept me down there even though I was doing all the things. I was, had the mantras, I did the meditation, I did all the stuff to, I was living in gratitude, all that stuff. But there was still this weight that was holding me down. And I did a series, it was called Heart Healing with a therapist that was like a hypnosis state. And it was surprising to me that during the session where we actually dove into that specific situation, I had forgiveness for the boy who did this to me. I did not, I was still holding on to a lot of anger and resentment to the people around me that didn't deal with it appropriately, the police, the counselors, the friends. So I was surprised in that session to I thought like, oh, I'm going to forgive him. I had already done that. That was done. It was all these other people that were involved, and it was myself. It was like myself, kind of like that 15-year-old girl still holding on to that blame and that shame that was put on her. And it was so transformational in my energy. Incredible, like incredible work. So I think that the work that you're doing, as you said, it's not just for the people. Like absolutely, I have a benefit to it, but it's for our world in general, right? It's for the betterment of our world, right? And the impact that we all create every day.
Absolutely. So the tremendous gift you give yourself ends up also being a gift you give the world and those around you. And it's interesting to watch what happens when you do make these changes. If I call it up leveling or upgrading oneself, how different things fall away and other things come to you. I don't know if you experience that as well, but as you shift your energy, those who were a match may no longer be a match.
Absolutely.
Yes, so a lot changes, and what you thought was valuable may no longer be, the top of the list of what you want to go after in your life.
Yeah, for sure. I saw that in myself. I saw people fall away just really naturally, not in a bad way, just weren't an energetic match anymore. I saw some relationships with family members to become quite difficult to navigate because I couldn't connect with them anymore. And I also saw that the things that I was valuing had shifted. I didn't value the money in the bank as my security anymore and my like ability to be okay. Actually valued my health and my well-being. My nervous system has become the number one priority in my life, is managing my nervous system and my energy. And that has changed, like it has shifted what I actually value in my life. I don't really care anymore about the things. I care about the experiences that I have.
Yes, well, at the end of the day, we can't take the things with us. I mean, we need, having an element of wealth abundance is kind of crucial for not only surviving, but thriving. And then that thriving means we can not only help ourselves to live abundantly, but what else can that contribute to the world? But if you don't have enough, life is difficult, very difficult. But I'm with you. I value, especially after my hitting my rock bottom, my health and how I manage my internal nervous system too is paramount to, if one is not well, nothing flourishes at all in your life. And for lots of people, they may be well, physically well, strong, have that wonderful flow of energy. However, not having happiness, not being able to really be in touch with it, to love themselves and feel happy, is a great deficit. So there's many ways of what abundance for everyone feels like. Someone might be incredibly wealthy, but so desperately unhappy or disconnected from the rest of what fills them up. So for me, it's my work. The more I work, the more it's about really expanding those aspects for one. So they live feeling one beautifully centered and present in their world. I think that's so important, because if you're off always chasing dreams, you're missing out on what's happening in the moment. So, this is probably also my take on my life, to be present and grateful. And I know that's almost now an overused word at the moment in the health mindset arena, gratitude. And what really is that? But I think to tune into one's heart, as you did with your work, it is an incredible space to be. I mean, I work inwardly every day, which is that inner space is almost, it's a place there's a preferred place to go to work within the self, to be within those no constraints of space and time and the physical around you. And what comes through that heart connection builds coherence in your body and helps build a more coherent way of being in your world. And then opportunities that weren't available to you, the world opens up to you in wonderful ways. Can I give you an example?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
One of my probably, someone who experienced a profound shift and wasn't even aware of it. This beautiful young woman of about 30 came to work with me, and she had 3 sessions. The first one, her greatest want was to feel safe enough to go to the supermarket. That's what she wanted to achieve. So the world was not safe. She'd had a lot of self-harm. She lived with a chronic PTSD family. These things I found out sort of as we worked together over a period of months. But this want to feel safe enough to just do normal daily activities. So we went to work, and in that first session where I instruct the mind to go back to 3 scenes, all to do with the cause, the root, the reason for this terrible feeling of being unsafe. And in psychology, that's called daisy chaining. It's a bit like if you had a movie short and they only gave you one snippet of movie, you wouldn't really understand what your mind's been doing with information. You don't have a big enough picture, but going back to 3 scenes gives you enough. We work on building enough information, because I ask lots of questions in order for the client to understand that's what my mind did with these very pertinent times in my life, which are generally traumatic for people, unless it's one of those incredibly illuminated, blissful moments. So this young woman went back to scenes in war, and she'd not spoken of her upbringing, and she was born into and then lived in her formative years in a war-torn country. and then as a refugee before she came to live in Australia. So she was safe here, didn't feel it. And when we cleared away enough of those terrible feelings that she had carried, and also somatically cleared those from her body, there's some audio listening that follows a session. So we're rewiring the subconscious mind to take in this new, very valuable information that life is safe, or life is whatever you want life to be, the magic wand. And on a post-session call with her 3 weeks later, because there's a follow-up, I said to her, have you noticed any change? And she said, no, not really, which is often common because people's reality has shifted. So they're not aware of what that new really is. They're just living it. And I said, where are you? I can hear birds and cars. And now remembering this is a young woman who couldn't leave the house, wasn't safe. She said, I've just been for my morning run and I'm sitting in the park. But it hadn't even dawned on her that she'd gone from being, I can't leave my home, I'm too unsafe to go anywhere, to I've just been for a run and I'm sitting in the park. That's the kind of transformation that can go on from just simply upgrading the mind and telling it from those scenes, I'm no longer a baby, feeling the desperate fear from my mother as those, I can hear the sounds of war outside and what that feels like, clearing them away and informing her mind that that's no longer me. I'm no longer baby living in a country that is unsafe. I'm no longer this age, I'm no longer that age, and upgrading the mind so it starts to understand, and with new transformational language that I give it, that becomes also the audio that we work on prior to a session. We get to inform the mind of a new way of being. Also, the client has an opportunity to let go of the connection to those traumatic moments. Now, and trauma, Michelle, doesn't have to be huge like that. It can literally be, I worked with a woman a few years back who had imposter syndrome at work, and very big people pleaser. And it was really hindering her life. She went back to a scene, such a simple scene. She's about 3 years old, and she's at this adult party and wanting to get someone's attention, a mum or a dad, to share something important with them. And they weren't in that, space. They were having fun. They're talking to their friends. No one was listening. So her mind in that moment, which the subconscious mind, it makes decisions for us to try and keep us safe. That's its number one job. Ridiculously now, it also is a primordial setting. It keeps us in the familiar, another job. And that's why it's so hard for people to make change on an analytical, conscious level. But this little girl, in no one listening, her mind decided for her at the time, well, just to make you feel like you don't have to experience this feeling of being invisible again, which is awkward and awful for you, I'll just make you not speak up. And that way you won't get those feelings of disappointment and being not seen. So that just rippled out into her life, right into her 30s. How this people pleasing kind of went on in order to try and be seen and heard and fit in. And at work, this inability to speak up when she had wonderful ideas that colleagues later would bring to the table. And she was continually missing out. And we changed that in one session. There were a couple of other scenes, and we worked on the part of her that ran this belief and behavior. Because it's only one part of you, it's not all of you. And upgrading that part, one session for her, just turns switches. So it's amazing on such a deep level how working with the subconscious mind can bring about such incredible, effective, and fast change for people.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Do people remember what they go through in a session with you?
Absolutely. No, so when you popped into hypnosis, you're totally safe, you're in control. I can't make you do anything you don't want to. So that old snake charmer on the stage business is just not true. And unless you want to do that, I can't make you do anything. And you're aware of the room and sounds around you. So we work very much together. So yes, I'll pop you into hypnosis. So it's like your conscious mind just sort of takes the back seat, the analytical mind, and the subconscious mind sort of comes forward. That's how I would see that. And then in asking the mind to return to a scene, place, event, and time, all to do with, let's say, anxiety or feeling terribly unworthy or whatever is there for you, a lack or an inability to connect. A lack of deep worth for yourself is generally number one. That umbrellas so many things. So when we go back to those things, it's a bit like viewing it on television. I mean, we can't revisit our past, but you'll experience it again. And I ask lots of questions. So they might say, I'm feeling very scared. And I'm going, you're feeling scared because. And then we unravel what's going on in that scene so the client starts to understand what was happening from more of a viewer's point of view, although they're feeling it again. But collecting information to see what the mind has done. So when we've visited a number of scenes, you start to go, well, my mind chose to keep me quiet. For me, like you, I'm a sexual abuse survivor. So I was a little girl, 4 and 5 years old, and the perpetrator was within my family, which was very difficult. And as you speak about those around you, my father used to drop me at my grandfather's to be looked after while I went to play golf. So for me, I disliked my father probably on an inner level. There was still a lot of anger towards him, more than even at some point my grandfather, because of what my grandfather used to say to keep me quiet. The devil got into us, meaning him and I, and if we're not good, the devil will come back. So my mind went about, and for me, that's a story. It's healed. I have a compassion for him and a great compassion for myself, and a deep understanding that unfortunately those who are perpetrators have generally been abused themselves. Like, the percentage is incredible. However, that changed my life, and I went about, my mind decided for me at that time, well, in order for the devil not to come back, how am I going to keep you safe? One, you're going to have to do everything really, really well, like perfectly. This perfectionism stepped in to try and make everything right. And also a silence, like not able to really articulate my needs. And I still sometimes work on that. There's always small nuances in your life that you can capture as you go and realize that that's also, you don't need to live a certain way, think a certain way. So work goes on past sessions, but those fundamental deep changes and letting go of his shame, which wasn't my shame, and the confusion of when one is happy, and this was a big one for me, something awful will follow. So when I was at my greatest in my career, one, I could never even feel that association to achieving. That just seemed to be a terrible disconnect, which is such a shame when I look back that I couldn't enjoy that. But also, I would go about in some strange way dismantling things when things were good, because that rug tugger mentality that people have, it is better to do it to yourself than wait for something awful to happen. what happens in times of trauma, or whatever that perceived trauma is. Could be that little girl standing and non-listening for that moment in time that also piggybacked on a few other times in her life. The mind is creating beliefs for us to try and keep us safe, number one job. And then it holds us in those patterns of belief and behavior because that's its primordial setting. The days of when we're all roaming the plains, if we ate familiar foods, we were okay, traveled familiar paths and stayed within the familiar communities, that kept us safe. Now that can be the most limiting way the mind works for us. And I almost see the subconscious mind as an entity of its own almost, running these programs. And the thing is, once you start, like for me, acknowledging, well, I'm no longer 4 years old, that's not me. And these are the words I'm given through the therapy. You go back to these places and you can go, well, in the upgrading, that's no longer me because the therapist gives me that. I give my client the start of that sentence and they finish it for themselves because I'm no longer 4, I'm a grown woman who can look after myself. You start informing the mind that I'm no longer 4, I'm not 7, I'm not 16, whatever those times are. And then there's a big change. We can do what's called dialogue with the hurter, which is a psychotherapy side where, for me at 4, I didn't have the opportunity to, I wasn't empowered to say, get off, don't do this to me. And so or whatever you need to say, which there can be a lot of, fuck off in that, which needs to also be said. Whatever that is, there's that opportunity in this work to do this. So you get to re-empower yourself like you would have needed to experience too. An ability to articulate that.
Yeah, I think the re-empowerment of yourself in these situations where you felt completely disempowered is a really significant piece of the process, right? I think until like I had gone to therapy to work through, issues and feelings around this, but the healing piece and the heart healing piece, the hypnosis piece, and then the re-empowerment in that situation was really transformational for me.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. Well, and I also think like I don't know that the work is ever done, right? Like I'm curious. I'm like, I wonder if I go like, is there more work to do? Could things get better? Like, is there something that's still lingering there? Do you find that people have kind of like don't mean like a one session and done, but like a one and done kind of, dealing with a traumatic situation? Or is this like a ongoing thing that they need to work through?
Good question. Look, I think let's go back to if you've really experienced trauma, which so many, everyone's experienced some level of trauma, big or small. It's quite often 3 sessions. We'll work on, it might be the most pertinent thing happening to you that's kind of crippling how you feel about yourself or what's happening in your life. And then it might be we work on your worth. And if it's worth, then we might go and work on the ability to, whatever the next step is. But worth, a greater love for the self, it might be upgrading your health. And boy, I've needed to do lots of that. Though it's interesting how one main issue can often umbrella many other things happening in your body. So for that war-torn client I spoke about, we worked on her safety, we worked on her worth, and then we worked on some behaviours that she had picked up, like skin picking and hair pulling, which are nervous behaviours. So that was sort of instrumental, those three things, to really help her shift to a new space within herself and in her life. I don't think the work on ourselves ever stops. I think to me, it comes in waves. I think there are times of incredible connection and feeling in flow, and then something will pop up that either reminds us that we have something else that we can grow and heal within ourselves or enhance within ourselves. And, until we all reach that level of illumination or enlightenment, maybe that is, to me, it's part of my wonderful journey here in this lifetime, is to let go of enough that I can just be present. Because living in the present moment is powerful.
It's so powerful, and it's amazing how challenging that can be. A friend of mine was just sharing with me, like, on the weekend, like, she feels like her mind is running at 1,000 miles an hour, always thinking about the different things, the different scenarios, and how they could all differently play out. And I was like, how about, like, being in the present moment right now, though? Like, how does that feel? And, not to kind of go into a coaching or, therapy moment with my friend, but can you be present with us right now? Like, we're just walking along the seawall, we're having a good time, we're just talking about our lives. Can we be in this moment, not thinking about all these other things that are going on? And it can be challenging. I found myself doing that a lot, where I'd be having conversation with somebody and I'm thinking about what's happening next on my calendar. It was like, well, what's going on that we can't engage in this conversation right in front of me? So it's interesting.
I feel, Michelle, the more we feed our subconscious mind, the more that rumination about things, we allow that to keep being the way. That rumination, the mind just gets, again, those neural pathways start to wire and fire, on a physical level. And so that becomes our pattern of behavior, our pattern of thinking. And then to turn it off takes certain presence and work. I do work with quite a few people who have that rumination and the inability to really turn the mind, to quieten the mind off. Now, some of that is giving, if I work with somebody and there's a simple activity like heart math breathing that could help them in their day, I'm very open to sharing things I've learned along the way that have made an enormous difference in my own life and in the life of others. But for a lot of people, I think living in the present moment I'd almost say, impossible, which is so incredibly, well, sad's not the right word, but, I'm deeply compassionate for those whose mind is running so loudly that it doesn't give them the opportunity to see and experience what's around them.
Yeah. And the peace of what's around them.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And with that too, there's serendipitous things that happen when you are in that space. The opportunities that you're starting to see, the indicators around you, because you are present enough for those to be aware of those.
Absolutely. I walk my dogs every day, and often we walk through a forest, and I many times just will pause and be like, this is beautiful. Let's just observe nature. Like, this is amazing. And look at the change in the seasons, right? It's very simple, but for me, that relaxes my nervous system, right? And I can breathe. I remember a breathwork practitioner that I worked with a few years ago. She said, how often in your day do you actually breathe in and breathe out? Because we walk around with this shallow breathing, right? Which is like a form of like bracing for the next impact of whatever is going to happen, right? And I was like, oh my God, I don't, till I started working with her and understanding my breath, I don't think I really breathed. It was like just this shallowness of breath and like, well, we got things to do, got places to go, people to see, like, got shit going on. And, I got to keep moving because if I don't keep moving, the next onslaught of crap is going to come flying at me, right? And that's no way to live.
That's a running away from, isn't it? Almost, if I fill up everything enough, then, I can just keep ahead of that awful feeling.
Totally. Now, I'm glad you said that because, like, that was me when my kids were little. I filled every moment of their day, of my husband's day. Like, we were go, go, go. I had all these things going on. I had a career. I had many volunteer roles, the kids' activities, my own stuff. And I didn't realize that that was actually avoidance. And I'm watching some friends do this right now where every moment of the day is filled with stuff. And they'll complain about it, right? They'll be like, oh my God, I got to take the kids here, there, and everywhere. Joe has to go to football and Jane has to go to baseball and everything's happening at the same time. And it's like, well, you knew that when you signed them up for these things, right? And so, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what's that about? Why do we do that?
I can only speak personally about what I see. I haven't, when I look at that, I think we have become so busy in our lives that we have sort of disconnected from what a lot is most natural to us, which are those pauses. Technology has created a very fast paced life, and this need to create, make, have, be becomes sort of the norm. We're almost stuck in a paradigm, humanity as a whole, where, it's not enough just to have a home that's comfortable, safe, but to have the bigger house with the XYZ and the newer car with all the cool. And who doesn't like comfort and beauty? And I do. However, if we wind time back a bit, granted, there were other aspects of life that weren't healthy, but that connection to your community, that connection, to just have time for your children to play, to make games up versus being, well, you know what the being the opposite of just make a game up and play, the simplicity of, again, being more present, having a little more time, being able to pause isn't so available anymore. But we've created this, and now everyone's living in this structure that I don't believe supports us. And I think long term, there has to be a major shift in order for well-being, for people's lives to be whole and happy and more interconnected rather than competitive. So we swung the pendulum one way, and hopefully for humanity it will come back, and for the earth herself and all who reside on her will come back into some balance. But we have to work at that. And the more awareness we can bring to our choices that we make, does that make us happy, or are we just doing what everyone else is doing in order to fit in, or without maybe even considering we're just doing those things because that's what everyone else is doing? But does that make us happy?
Yeah, that's such a good question, right? Because I think we can all get really caught up in just doing the things that we're told to do, or, you have a business. And I've been questioning this a lot lately personally is I don't want to be on social media anymore. I'm over it. I'm tired of it. It's exhausting to me. And I had a friend say, but like, you need to do that for your business. I'm like, but do I? Like, I don't know. Do people hire an accountant or bookkeeper because of they see a TikTok video or something? Maybe they do, but I feel exhausted by it. Right. And so it's like, maybe we can just be aware of things and wonder, like, to me, curiosity is such an abundant state, right? Because it's not assigning a meaning to anything. It's just asking questions, right? And being curious about what possibilities are out there, right?
Absolutely. Because your time and energy might be better spent reaching out to, like you did with me when we met on Podcasters. It might be better spent choosing carefully what just innately resonates with you and letting the rest go for a while and then seeing what percolates. How do I want to touch base with the world?
Totally, totally. Like in my business, I was like, you know what? I let go of my social media team and I'm like, I'm going to use that money and just go to events, like go to in person events where I'm going to meet real people in real life. And that's what I want to do now. Doesn't mean that I won't ever post on social, but that just doesn't feel like the right thing for me. And, I think it's all our individual choice as to, what we do. But the concept of being busy just to be busy, I'm over it.
Good for you.
Right? Like I'm over it. I don't want to do that anymore because I spent years doing that and it's not satisfying.
So again, that's more of a mind, that's the analytical mind running on what we're all taught sort of will work. And if you're coming into your heart and really asking for you to say, I want to go off and meet people, how amazing. That's an incredibly beautiful way of connecting. Some of it will feel good, some of it won't. But it also helps you explore who you are and to, when you have these wonderful conversations, you get to know a bit more about yourself and you also get to know more about who your client is by having those conversations that work and don't work. And, I feel this lack of connection that is being developed through the way we've all been living. I jump on the tram to go down to a hub that I share a space with sometimes. And everyone's on their mobile and they're not looking. And I guarantee there are so many times I've watched someone really elderly get on who needs a seat, someone who's hurt, like they're on crutches, or women who are heavily pregnant, someone who really needs a seat. No one notices them. They're just connected in with this other world, but they're so disconnected from everyone around them. And I think really to flourish in life, there's some things that need to shift in order for us to be happy.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, I think the pendulum has swung really to the extreme. And I think naturally there'll be people who will not resonate with that anymore, like myself, maybe, who will be like, no, not doing that. When I was at an event recently, I met two women who aren't on social media at all, like nothing. And they were both like, no, I just don't engage in it anymore. It became really unhealthy and I was missing out on life. And I was like, wow, it's awesome. And not that I'm all down on social media and stuff because there's great advantages to things. Like you're in New Zealand, I'm in Canada, and we get to hang out and talk. I wouldn't be able to meet you. And so I'm not like all anti social media or, that kind of thing. But I think that, like you said, the power of being in the present moment is something to consider, I think, for all of us and us working on ourselves and the vibration that we're living in is a really important piece.
Absolutely. And from there, when we do resonate in that more joyful, peaceful space within, the ripple effect, it's extraordinary what comes to you just by changing your vibration, and how you can also give to the world, but just by being in this new. You don't have to go anywhere or do anything incredible. You are experiencing and connecting in a different way. The beauty, Michelle, too, of rapid transformational therapy, and as you said, work goes on in life within oneself. I would like them to think forever, while we're here. But the beauty of rapid transformational therapy, it really does make instrumental change in a pretty short time, hence its name. And life is precious. And how we invest our time and energy and money is also really, precious. So for my kind of 5 to 6 hours of investment in what I would call a session with a client, which comes with a hello and some pre-session work and a couple of hours in a session and some support and audio and a post-session meeting, is, I believe, so well valued compared to, and no disrespect, talk therapy, etc., has its place. It gives you wonderful strategies and tools, and you're witnessed, and you can release things in a way. But this fundamentally means that you can make some very deep life enhancing changes in a very short time that are, if you do the bit of audio listening post your work as well, so you can wire and fire those new pathways and encourage the subconscious mind to take on board this new language that becomes new beliefs and new patterns of behavior, then you can go from kind of 0 to 100 in quite a short time. And for me, that's just, I just feel that change. Most people come to this work when they've tried everything else. And because it's a fairly new way of accessing change within themselves, a lot of people are a little bit apprehensive, but are desperate to create something new within themselves and to let go of things that are really limiting them, or upscale, whichever way you want to go. This has enormous benefits. And if it's not a fit, I'm the first one to say this work maybe isn't for you. It's about finding people you resonate with. In speaking with you, I have that sense of you too. You're not just there making a living, you're there to help make a difference in people's lives.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's such an amazing conversation. I really want to thank you for your time.
Well, I'm so grateful for the invitation.
Well, I think what you're doing is just phenomenal and such a gift. And I really want to encourage our listeners to contact you if this resonated with them. How do they find you, Chrissie?
Well, that's kind. I have a website called Access Your Own Healing, all one word, .com, accessyourownhealing.com. And through that, you can book a simple intro call with me. That's free. We just get to have a chat. You can share what you'd like to achieve or let go of, which interestingly, a lot of people can't tell you what they want. They just know what they no longer can endure. So we work together on the other, what that magic wand is. And then if they're keen and that resonates with them and with me, then, we can go to work together.
We'll put all the links in the show notes so that people can have an easy way to contact you. I think I'm going to contact you. I want to have a conversation.
Well, I might contact you too. Maybe we can share some time together. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think you're very gifted in what you're doing, and so I'm always up for somebody who can help me, clean things up energetically even more, right? So I thank you so much for sharing this, and thank you for sharing everything that you did. I really appreciate that. And I know that it's going to be really valuable to our listeners. So thank you so much, Chrissie.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. It talks about some very serious situations that some of us may go through in our lives. And a question that came up for me is, how could rapid transformational therapy help enrich my life? So many of us experience less of our lives than we might due to some past traumas, limiting beliefs, and societal roadblocks. And these barriers stand in the way of our authenticity and coming into our ideal selves. I loved this conversation with Chrissie, a great practitioner of RTT, and she has an incredible breadth of knowledge in this and so many other modalities. I think that she brings a really great lens to this whole idea of upgrading the computer chips of your being. I love that part. It's definitely a piece of gold for me. I'm going to take that away and think about, how can I upgrade my computer chip? I would love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear anything that you wish to share. Please hit me up in my DMs on all social media at Michelle B. Cooper, or you can check out the Rich Life Revolution podcast at our website, richliferevolution.com. And of course, I encourage you to leave us a review, give us some stars. That helps get our podcast out there to more people. So I invite you to join us next week, where we are going to be talking about letters to the universe and how powerful this can be. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you got at least one gold nugget today. Be sure to grab your copy of the Rich Life Revolution workbook to help you set the foundation for your next level of wealthy. Get it now at richliferevolution.ca, and I'll see you later.